This talk was given by Roshi Martin, guiding teacher of the Endless Path Zendo, a lay Buddhist community in Rochester, New York. Join our practice, in person or online, at endlesspathzendo.org.
So today is April 25th, 2026, and this morning here at Endless Path Zendo we'll begin a series of teishos from another book of mine, an slightly earlier one, The Zen Life of Bodhisattvas, also Sumeru books. This came out in, 2023, not too long ago. Next week, of course, we will be having a half-day Zazenkai in honor of Roshi Philip Kapleau, and that is his memorial date is the 6th, so we will be just prior to that. And so next week's teisho will be on Roshi Kapleau, or a teisho recording of one of his. I haven't quite decided yet. And that will be, remember, we have a half day next Saturday. So this will just kind of start at the beginning and move into the nature of what are bodhisattvas to start with. And I see as a kind of preface to our half-day Zazenkai on Roshi Kapleau in honor of him. What do bodhisattvas look like? Are they different? Are they special? Or what? Or not? So, introduction. How old is the Bodhisattva Manjsuri this year? That's an introductory koan that we have to respond to. How old is the Bodhisattva Manjsuri this year? So, this book is a continuation or companion to an earlier book, A Zen Life of Buddha. This is A Zen Life of Bodhisattvas. That book, which came out in 2022, explored the centrality of the Buddha's historic and legendary life to ongoing Zen practice. It also looked at the ancient vow of the Bodhisattva as being what Zen practice is really all about. So all those things you hear about people getting their Zen on and things like that really are quite trivial compared to what Zen, in light of, let's put it this way, what Zen is really all about. That's the vow of the Bodhisattva, something very profound, and that's what this whole book is really about. In this book, we'll look at the nature of that vow and the nature and role of Bodhisattvas themselves, the greatly wise and compassionate beings at the intimate core of daily Zen practice. The book's organization, as you'll see as we go through it, is simple. It's arranged in 3 sections. The first, titled Bodhisattvas, explores who or what bodhisattvas are, how they're seen in Zen tradition, and whether they are even real or not. The focus will be on the 2 bodhisattvas most central to Zen practice, Manjsuri, Bodhisattva of wisdom, and Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva of compassion, 2 archetypal ways of understanding our own mind. We'll also look at the Bodhisattvas Maitreya and Samantbhadra, who also appear in Zen tradition, and koans will essentially serve as our gateless gateways into this exploration, along with a bit of Buddhist folklore. The second section, the Bodhisattva, looks at the Buddha even before he was the Buddha, that is, the historic figure known as the Buddha Shakyamuni, who lived 2,500 years ago. Jataka tales, traditional past life tales of the Buddha as he himself matured along the way of the Bodhisattva toward Buddhahood will be our focus in that section. Commentary on each tale from a Zen perspective will connect ancient myth and folklore to the realities of daily Zen practice. The third and final section, Ordinary Bodhisattvas, moves from the ideal to the real and to the life of an ordinary person doing their best to actualize the way of the Bodhisattva today. And it will also explore failure, the painful inevitability of coming up short that underlies the way of the Bodhisattva. For it is only by the challenges we face in trying, failing, getting back up and trying again, that we proceed along the Bodhisattva way. So we might say the Sunday painter who aims to one day become a Rembrandt or Picasso must expect that each painting will not yet be quite good enough, quite it. So failure, trying again. This is the essence of it. And we'll look briefly, too, at the connection of creative imagination to Bodhisattva vows. I think there's an intimate connection, and so we'll look at that. And finally, to be clear, this is not going to be a scholarly or exhaustive study. Rather, it's a personal expression of my own more than 50 years of formal Zen practice and more than 10 years at that time, so it's more than a dozen years now, of Zen teaching, first as an apprentice and then as a fully Dharma-transmitted Zen teacher. And I take my lead from my betters, in this case, one of my favorites, the Japanese Zen monk poet Ryokan. It dates 1751 to 1838. The wind brings enough fallen leaves to make a fire. The wind brings enough fallen leaves to make a fire. You don't have to get exhaustively out there gathering things. What you need gets blown to you if you pay attention. So, the way up, growing up beings, chapter 1. And this opens with an interview I did with Brick McDaniel in a book called Further Zen Conversations. And he interviewed me, and this is a quote from myself. Zen is one of the most accessible paths to growing up as a human being. And by growing up, I simply mean becoming aware of our own habitual, unconscious self-centeredness and not continuing to build a comfy nest there, not continuing to cling to that, not keeping it in the driver's seat, but gradually and suddenly to see through it and let it go, so that more and more of whatever we already are, selflessly, actually are, can function in and as this life. So that's my nutshell take on our practice. So, as a vital branch of Mahayana, which literally means great way, Buddhism, Maha is great, Yana is way, or vehicle, so great vehicle Buddhism. Zen Buddhism holds that great bodhisattvas, spiritually advanced wisdom beings, and again, Bodhi in Sanskrit is wisdom and sattva being. So bodhisattvas are literally wisdom beings whose sole purpose is saving or freeing all living beings from suffering, exist all around us. Having freed themselves from their own habitual self-centeredness, they are at compassionate play throughout the many worlds. Zen holds that along with such deeply realized bodhisattvas, there are countless other less advanced ones, other less advanced ones, many of whom may be unknown even to themselves. But when things get dark, they begin to shine out like stars in the vastness of night. These are the ordinary, good-hearted people who turn up when the going gets rough. People you can count on to do the right thing. Their humanity, courage, and kindness, traits not owned by any one religion, any one race, any one gender, or perhaps even any one species, marks their presence. Whether or not they uphold formal spiritual belief or practice is totally beside the point. They embody and enact the ancient way, making truly human life possible. And then there's us, you and me, who Zen also kindly calls bodhisattvas, now working at maturing as we persevere through life's ups and downs. In Buddhist countries, entire movements have been inspired by this bodhisattva ideal. So here's a lengthy quote from Buddha.net Learning, Dharmadatta, it's online. Any case, in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha says that those who build causeways and bridges will make much merit for themselves. King Asoka took this as a cue to have roads straightened and repaired, to have them lined with trees, and to have wells dug at regular intervals along them. Numerous records from the Buddhist period in India mention similar good works. A 15th century Tibetan saint built an iron chain suspension bridge that was still in use in the 1950s. In medieval Japan, building roads and bridges as an act of piety became almost an obsession. Monks and nuns were forever touring the country collecting funds for such projects, and usually the whole community participated in the actual construction. A document dated 1276 concerning the construction of a bridge over the Midori River says people of high and low estate crowd on either hand, bickering constantly. People and horses vied to board small boats that then capsized, drowning their passengers. The monk who built his bridge says he did so because when we see a dangerous situation, we must make it safe. For the Buddha has compassion for people. Think of how that might apply in your life and the things that you're seeing, or we're all seeing these days. When we see a dangerous situation, we must make it safe. We must work to do our best to make things safe for people, for ourselves as well, for the future generations. Before the rise of the modern states with public works departments, the Buddhist enthusiasm for building roads and bridges had a significant role to play in developing trade, communications, the spread of ideas, and generally lessening of the hardships of life. So compassionate action is the very core of interacting with the world in a meaningful way. Zen Master Hakuin, his dates are 1686 to 1769. Perhaps the most significant Japanese Zen teacher of the last 300 years, helped build a bridge at a dangerous river crossing. His motivation was as follows, and this is something he wrote. When I visited Jisoji in Torin 3 or 4 days later, we had to cross the river again. The porter said, "It's a dangerous crossing. The river often overflows 2 or 3 times in a single month. People are carried away and sometimes drown." Again, I thought, putting up a bridge here is of vital importance and would be a deed of the greatest virtue as well. If lay people and priests from this area were to combine their efforts, such a project should not be too difficult to accomplish. Done little by little in small steps, it should not take too long to complete. An undertaking such as this, which would provide great relief to people, can also be seen as a kind of skillful means promoting the salvation of sentient beings. With that in mind, I made up a small booklet to serve as a roster in which to list the names of people who contributed donations to the project. As a start, I donated the 4 strings of coins I had received for the lectures. He had done a series of lectures on the Blue Cliff record, the Hekikanroku, and he got honorarium for that. And so he donated that entire amount to this project of building a bridge over a dangerous river crossing. I also composed a verse which I inscribed on the roster as a preface. I made copies to give to the priests of 4 of Ryotanji's sub-temples, Daitsuan, Jikoan, Ginkean, and Ensuan. A small start, the first step in a journey of 1,000 leagues. But my hope is that the project will eventually grow and assume mountainous proportions. And here's the verse that he wrote. Erecting a bamboo bridge to span a raging mountain torrent far excels the merit of building pagodas throughout the land. Hearing of the flooding during the spring and autumn rains, how could anyone sit by knowing that people will come to harm? How could anyone sit by knowing that people will come to harm? You can find that and much, much more of Hakuin's great writings and deeds in The Complete Poison Blossoms from a Thicket of Thorn, the Zen records of Hakuin Zenji, translated by that able translator, Norman Waddell. Such compassionate activity goes back to an ideal set in place by the Buddha himself 2,500 years ago. In the Kulavaka Jataka, one of his past life tales, he tells of a time when he was a bodhisattva in a distant past life who dedicated himself to removing boulders from roads, cutting down trees that might break wagon wheels and axles, and building bridges, water tanks, and rest houses to benefit the lives of others. Buddhist tradition asserts that our actual nature, yours, mine, everyone's, is already from the start that of a Buddha or Bodhisattva. That each of us, immature and limited as we currently are, is a wise or potentially a wise and compassionate being. Or could be, we could be such a being if we only knew it. Our problem is that we don't know it, that we've forgotten our original nature. And because of this fundamental ignorance, it's known as avidya in Sanskrit, ignorance of one's own actual nature, a blindness in the depths or to the depths, we can and do not just fail to act compassionately, but go sadly off track, often to catastrophic effect. Hence our world today, with its problems of classicism, nationalism, racism, misogyny, environmental destruction, and more, much more. We can choose to correct our fundamental error and eventually the ills that spring from it through what we rather tamely call spiritual practice. It sounds lovely, but it's a really rather tame designation for the kind of passionate inquiry, the facing through of our own issues, the untying of tangled knots in our psyches, the sacrifices and demands that spiritual practice is going to involve us in. In any case, we can begin to set things right by awakening to our actual nature and then learning to live from it, in light of it. This is the essence of Zen practice. We practice Zen to awake to original nature and then actualize it in our lives, maturing as beginner bodhisattvas. Nyogen Senzaki, a venerable 20th century Japanese Zen master, used to address his students as dear bodhisattvas. That's what when he'd give a talk, he'd begin with, dear bodhisattvas. And koan 74 in the Blue Cliff record, which is titled Chindui's Rice Pail, includes this. Every day at mealtime, Master Chindui would himself bring the pail of boiled rice and do a little dance in front of the monk's hall. Laughing loudly, he would say, dear bodhisattvas, come and eat. Dear bodhisattvas, come and eat. So Senzaki Sensei was speaking from the heart of the tradition when he addressed his community as dear bodhisattvas. Buddhas who've gone beyond being bodhisattvas are so fully realized and awakened they don't need to think of wisdom and compassion at all anymore, as their entire nature is wisdom and compassion. No self-centered thoughts of trying to help or of becoming wise remain. Fully grounded in reality, they simply help and are wise. It is their nature to do and be so. And so they outshine bodhisattvas, those who are still hard at work saving and helping and choosing not to enter nirvana in order to continue helping endlessly. This attachment to saving others is said to be the last trace of a bodhisattva's ancient habit of self-centeredness, now refined to the utmost degree. Zen Master Hakuin said, Zen Buddhism is like an ocean. The further you go into it, the deeper it gets. It's like a mountain. The more you climb it, the higher it gets. Simply put, The way of the Bodhisattva is the way of ongoing practice realization. And what is the wisdom of such wisdom beings? I'd say it's a matter of wisely choosing to mature, to grow up beyond our habitual unconscious self-centeredness, which means they're not simply nice people or do-gooders. Basically, in Zen, a bodhisattva is you or me if we choose to do the work of freeing ourselves from the habitual compulsions of a self-centered life. In Zen, we do this work of maturing by practicing, which means sitting in Zazen, focusing on counting the breath. This this and so on, up to 10 and starting at 1 again, or by fully experiencing this breath, or by working with the teacher and learning to absorb ourselves in a koan so fully that there's no room left for our old habitual me, myself, and I kind of thinking to claim center stage. Instead, there is just this breath, this koan point, this vroom of a car passing in the street, this caw of the crow, this ache in the knee, this unself-centered intimacy with what simply is. This is our start, our entrance into living a richer, wiser, fuller life, a life that begins with being less caught up in ideas of ourselves, and so less likely to ignore what's right in front of us. This tree, this star, this breath, this person. The compassion of the way of the Bodhisattva starts here. From this foundation of formal practice, we work at embodying its selfless insight into how we live, how we actually interact with everyone and everything around us. So Zen practice really involves a long process of maturing. Buddhist tradition says that there are spiritually maturing beings who have been at it so long that they're now great wisdom beings, or Mahasattvas. Maha is great, Sattva is being. It's said that these greatly advanced bodhisattvas can take any form to aid suffering beings and can even be petitioned for aid. Many Zen Buddhist centers and temples have areas set aside where practitioners can sit before figures of such advanced bodhisattvas when we feel lost or stuck or overwhelmed. Their presence can remind us of our own potential for wisdom and compassion. Sitting before them can be deeply encouraging, but the advanced bodhisattva mahasattvas embodied in sculpture and paintings are not gods. They were ordinary people who chose to work on themselves, who realized enlightenment or intimacy, and came forward from there, confirmed in a selfless commitment to be of benefit to all. The two greatest bodhisattvas at the core of Zen Buddhism are Manjsuri, Bodhisattva of wisdom. In Japan, he may be known as Manju, in China as Wenshu, and Avalokitesvara, Bodhisattva of compassion. Kanon, Kanji Zai, or Kwanon in Japan, Kuan Yin in China. The bodhisattvas Manjsuri and Kanon show the natural pairing of wisdom and compassion. That's the heart of Zen practice and teaching. Samantbhadra, which would be Fugen in Japan, bodhisattva of compassionate action, while less known in the West, or less well known in the West, on Zen Buddhist altars is typically seated on the Buddha's right, paired with Manjsuri on the Buddha's left. Iconographically, Samantbhadra or Fugen is seated on an elephant, and Manjsuri on a lion. There is also Maitreya Bodhisattva Miraku in Japan, who is said to now be in the Tushita heavens, getting ready to return to earth and liberate all beings as our next full Buddha. While a focus on these particular bodhisattvas may seem arbitrary, given that other Buddhist traditions such as Vajrayana, Tibetan practice, recognize countless bodhisattvas, these few remain the important ones for Zen. Yasutani Roshi, the 20th century Japanese teacher so central to the transmission of koan training to the West. He was Eiken Roshi's teacher at one point. He was Kapla Roshi's teacher at one point. He was influential in Zen Center of Los Angeles' koan practice. In other words, the Harada Yasutani koan lineage, which is the most central koan practice in the West these days, began as a very, very small hybrid lineage combining Soto and Rinzai in Japan with Harada Roshi. And now he was actually Kapla Roshi's second teacher after Nakagawa Roshi. Anyway, Yasutani Roshi was his ear. So he wrote, "Most Buddhist scholars say that Kwanon is our compassionate mind, but there is no concrete bodhisattva existing outside us. This statement is only half true. It is a theoretical interpretation of Kwanon and omits the actual interpretation. For every theory, there is an underlying fact. Theory and fact must exist simultaneously. If not, either the theory is false or the fact is misunderstood. Kwanon Bodhisattva is indeed our compassionate mind, and if we cultivate this compassion, we can all become Kwanon Bodhisattva. In this sense, there are many Kwanons in the world. Kwanon literally means to hear others' anxieties intuitively. Kwanon is hearer of the cries of the world, is the meaning of the name. Hearer of the cries of the world. A person who saves others and who is full of compassion by virtue of this intuitive faculty is called Kwanon Bodhisattva. Without exception, we all have the sympathetic spirit of Kwanon. Because of our misconception about the ego, however, we have lost this intuitive feeling. Buddhism encourages us to realize the fact that the concept of ego is an illusion. Then it helps us to awaken our inherent sympathetic spirit. As a means to this end, Buddhism teaches us to do charitable work. This is the theoretical interpretation of Kwanon Bodhisattva. As long as we have Kwanon's virtue, we cannot deny that the real Kwanon who cultivates this virtue and uses his compassion 100% really does exist. To further clarify this actual interpretation, let me explain Manju Bodhisattva and Fugen Bodhisattva. According to the theoretical interpretation, Manju is our enlightened wisdom, and Fugen is our complete compassionate mind, which evolves from this enlightened wisdom. This interpretation is correct. However, to say that no real bodhisattvas like Manju or Fugen exist is an error. Both bodhisattvas appear in Buddhist sutras and scriptures quite frequently. It is the actual and correct attitude of a Buddhist to believe in the actual existence of these two bodhisattvas. There is one more important bodhisattva whom we must not forget. His name is Maitreya Bodhisattva, Miraku. He was assigned to be the successor of Shakyamuni Buddha and will appear in this world 5,670,000,000 years after Buddha's death. So it's said that he is now in the Tosotsu heaven, preaching to heavenly beings, and that when Buddhism disappears from this world, he will become the next Buddha. That's why it's said in Buddhist tradition, you might not want to wait around for Maitreya to show up. It's going to be a long time. If you wait to realize your nature till then, you're going to go through an awful lot of suffering in the course of some 5,670,000,000 years. You might want to work on it now and not wait around. Anyway, such great bodhisattvas are the Rembrandts, the Van Goghs, and Picassos of Zen. Compared to them, we are the Sunday painters, the hobbyists, still learning to simply set up our easels, choose our brushes, and get something down on canvas. Still, if even hobbyists persist, who knows what they might become capable of creating? In short, Zen is a practical, accessible way of walking the path of the Bodhisattva, actually doing that, and of actualizing the great vow. We do a version of the great vow when we recite our great vows at the end of every formal period of Zazen. We are taking Bodhisattva vows when we do that. It is not just a ritual exercise that we have to go through before we can get out of the Zendo and go off and do other things. It's we take these vows before we return to life. That's what we're doing. The many beings are numberless. I vow to free them all. Greed, hatred, and ignorance rise endlessly. I vow to abandon them all. Dharma gates are countless. I vow to wake to them all. Buddha's way is unattainable. I vow to embody it all. This is the vow of the Bodhisattva. That's what you're doing every time. So anyway, whatever Lama Govinda in Foundations of Tibetan Mysticism, which sounds like a very daunting book, is quite terrific. It's quite a terrific book. It has a lot to say about spiritual practice that's really worth digging into. In any case, he says the Bodhisattva vow can be summed up as this: whatever be the highest perfection of the human mind, may I realize it for the benefit of all that lives. Whatever may be the highest perfection of the human mind, may I realize it for the benefit of all that lives. That's the Bodhisattva vow. That's intrinsic to who we are. Don't you feel that when it gets recited? You go, yeah, that's what I want. In any case, Zen Master Hakuin wrote about the Bodhisattva. In Chinese, he's the sentient being of great heart, entering the three ways. The three ways are the realms of hungry ghosts, animals, and hell dwellers, that is, lower realms. He takes on our suffering, joyfully appearing unbidden throughout the world, vowing not to accept the fruit of partial awakening. He deepens his attainment in working to save others. Even should the great void completely cease to exist, his struggle to save sentient beings would never end. Even if the great void should completely cease to exist, his struggle to save sentient beings would never end. Classical Buddhism says that the length of any aspiring bodhisattva's spiritual career, starting from their initial vow to their complete realization of innate Buddhahood, will be 3 times 10 to the 15th power times 320 times 10 to the 6th power, or 4 times 960,000 million billion years. In essence, it's going to take an unimaginably long time, a time that is beyond all conceptual understanding. Reading between the lines and from a Zen perspective, this also suggests that right now, beyond all concepts, including those of time and space, which are concepts in which we orient ourselves, right now, beyond all concepts, original nature is already fully present and fully accessible. Accessible. Master Dogen, in a section of the Shobogenzo, Eye of the Treasury of the True Dharma, titled Painting of a Rice Cake, Gabyo is the title in Japanese, wrote that to paint a picture of a Buddha, that is to truly paint a picture of a Buddha, which means to become one, we use not paints and brushes, but countless kalpas of assiduous practice. If you want to paint a picture of a Buddha, you do it through countless kalpas of assiduous practice. As to what the length of a kalpa might be, classical Buddhism says that a kalpa is the time it would take a god, a deva, a being of a higher realm, who swoops down to earth once every 100 years and brushes the top of a mountain, a great mountain, let's say like Mount Everest, with the sleeve of his or her silken robe once every 100 years. A kalpa is the length of time it would take to wear that mountain down to the sea. Tori Zenji's Hakuin's Air emphasized that Zen students, motivated by Bodhisattva's vows, should understand that their training will necessarily entail a long maturation. People think they can practice Zen, grab something and get out. But that's not Zen practice. In his view, Kensho, a first and usually shallow glimpse of self-nature, is simply where we begin. For those who persist, additional kenshos and eventually deeper and more complete ones called satori can follow. In the meantime, our character is tested and our emerging skills improve through the challenges of our own ordinary living. And if you haven't figured it out yet, our own ordinary living will include many challenges. That's just how it is. And these challenges can help us grow up. They're not just obstacles. From the perspective of the vow of the Bodhisattva, the challenges will help us mature if we make use of them. In the Buddha's past life stories, the Jataka tales, stories of his own path as a bodhisattva maturing through difficulties and challenges and situations, an animal or even a tree might be more spiritually evolved than a human being. Is this mere religious fantasy? Well, dogs do run through flames to save people. Dolphins have pushed drowning swimmers to shore. Whales have protected snorkelers from sharks. Orcas, so-called killer whales, have guided boaters to safe harbors. Recently, a pod of sperm whales adopted a lonely, deformed dolphin and allowed that dolphin to join their community. And trees and plants, which give us the oxygen we need to breathe, transformed what was once a barren rock of a planet into a garden. What might these facts be saying about the nature of our world? Those are simply facts. What are they saying about the nature of this world? From a Buddhist perspective, life is itself bodhisattvic. Essentially. That is essentially. Yet given the chaotic, even horrific events of history, wouldn't such a view really be childishly naive? Do we have to shut our eyes to reality to become Zen Buddhists? The 4 vows, or great vows for all, which we all Zen Buddhist students, Zen students recite at the conclusion of periods of formal zazen, actually seem pretty impossible when you think about them. We just went through them, so I won't repeat them now, but how could anyone accomplish such things that we vow to do? Free or save all beings? Become free oneself of all ignorance, greed, and hatred? See life and its difficulties as a source of endless opportunity for greater personal insight and depth? And finally, attain what can't be attained? Master Hakuin's great disciple Tori Enji, Zenji means noted Zen person, but his name was actually Tori Enji. But he's also known as Tori Zenji because he was such a noted Zen practitioner and realizer of a great way, formulated an especially personal and heartfelt bodhisattva vow that we use on the mornings of Sesshin. And it goes like this: I'm only a simple disciple, but I offer these respectful words. When I regard the true nature of the many dharmas, I find them all to be sacred forms of the Tathagatas. Thus come one, Tathagata. It's an epithet for the Buddha. Thus come one, completely present. Thus come doesn't just know before or after, we might say. Never failing essence. Each particle of matter, each moment, is no other than the Tathagata's inexpressible radiance. With this realization, our virtuous ancestors gave tender care to beasts and birds with compassionate minds and hearts. Among us in our own daily lives, who is not reverently grateful for the protections of life, food, drink, and clothing? Though they are inanimate things, they are nonetheless the warm flesh and blood, the merciful incarnations of Buddha. All the more we can be especially, here's a challenge, sympathetic and affectionate with foolish people, particularly with someone who becomes a sworn enemy and persecutes us with abusive language. That very abuse conveys the Buddha's boundless loving kindness. It is a compassionate device to liberate us entirely from the mean-spirited delusions we have built up with our wrongful conduct from the beginningless past. With our open response to such abuse, we completely relinquish ourselves, and the most profound and pure faith arises. At the peak of each thought, a lotus flower opens, and on each flower there is revealed a Buddha. Everywhere is the Pure Land in its beauty. We see fully the Tathagata's radiant light right where we are. May we retain this mind and extend it throughout the world so that we and all beings become mature in Buddha's wisdom. Buddhist tradition says that advanced bodhisattva mahasattvas who lived such vows can appear in any form to help. It is their art form, their play. Enin, a Japanese Buddhist monk traveling in Tang-era China, reported that when he went to Mount Wutai, the mountain sacred to Manjsuri, Bodhisattva of wisdom, he found that everyone, monks, nuns, laymen and women, treated even the lowliest person or animal there with an exceptional kindness. They'd see a donkey and whisper, "It could be Manjsuri. He might have taken this form," and would treat that animal with the utmost respect, just in case. Such advanced bodhisattvas, we're told, might even surprise us with actions that look like anything but help. So the storm that grounds our plane and ruins our plans might be a bodhisattva doing his or her thing, creating a delay to save us from who knows what. Or a bodhisattva could be the one dialing that ringing phone, which when we pick it up has no one on the line. Here's a true story. And I'll personalize it more than is in this book. When we first came to Rochester in 1970, maybe this is about 1972. So our son Jake was like 2 years old, and this is like 50 some odd years ago. Rose was in the kitchen cooking, I don't know what. But she was using a pressure cooker for it. And she was holding Jake on her hip and standing by the stove where whatever was in the pressure cooker was cooking. This is long before cell phones. There was a phone call in the other room where the telephone was. So she left the kitchen, picked up the phone, went, "Hello, hello." There was no one on the line. She turned to head back to the kitchen, and there was a loud explosion. Bam! When she got to the kitchen, if it was spaghetti sauce she was making, I don't know what say it was, it looked like a slaughterhouse. There was spaghetti sauce sprayed all over the walls, and there was a big dent in the ceiling because the top of the pressure cooker had blown straight up to the ceiling, smashed into the ceiling, and then come down, clang, on the floor. She hadn't locked the lid down properly. If she had been standing next to the stove, she could have been blinded or killed, the baby blinded or killed. The phone call had come at exactly the right moment to save her life, and there was no one on the line. Had they been saved from injury or death by the wrong number bodhisattva who dialed them up just in time? I have no idea. But such things do happen. Think about your own life. I'll tell you a couple of others if there's time, incidents like that. They can't be explained. What's the story going on behind those life-saving, strange acts of inexpressible, mysterious kindness that do happen in this world? Anyway, even so, can we depend on miraculous salvations? Should they be articles of Zen Buddhist faith? Wouldn't it be foolish to go around proclaiming that rude person who cut me off on the highway, forcing me to miss my exit, was a bodhisattva? Or that bee sting that put me in the hospital was a bodhisattva? Though faith in the existence of bodhisattvas, that is, beings more spiritually mature than ourselves, makes sense, especially given what we know about ourselves, Zen tradition still says that to know who or what bodhisattvas are, we need to know who or what we ourselves are. What is this self? Where is this self that I'm so concerned about? Who sees colors with these eyes, hears sounds with these ears? To answer such questions, we may point to our heads or hearts and say, within, but where is that? Where is within? What's within? Is this self male or female, old or young, wise or foolish? Can you really say? In time, we will all face unanswerable questions. Think of all the things that you laughed at as cliches when you were young and are now meaningful realities. We will all face unanswerable questions. Who am I? Why was I born? Why must I die? Why am I here? Why, if we live in a beneficent universe, are there holocausts and killing fields, droughts, famines, tsunamis, and earthquakes? Why all this suffering? There's nothing naive about this. Zen does not ask us to put on rose-colored glasses. In fact, rather than searching for bodhisattvas to save us, Zen says we'd do better to plunge into the questions that plague us, and there seek and find answers, and so mature into and as bodhisattvas ourselves. This, after all, is what the Buddha left home to do. This is what Zen Buddhist practice can help us do as well, in our own way and to our own degree. Then again, are bodhisattvas really real? So I gave you that incident that happened to us when Jake was just a baby. He's now like, 55 or 56? And Rose was a young woman. Here's another incident. This is before Jake was born, back in 1970. After I'd left graduate school, and Rose and I, she was pregnant with Jake at the time, were living in rural Pennsylvania, an hour or so south of Binghamton. One day, Binghamton, New York, if you don't know where Binghamton is. Anyway, one day, it's where we had gone to college. We had gone to Harper College, which is now Binghamton University. One day we drove into town. Rose had a dentist appointment. And while she was busy, I took off on our old VW bus to handle errands. I chanced on a gas station run by two old gents in overalls who sold used cars. Picture this, two old guys wearing overalls in a kind of outdoor open mart of used cars in Binghamton, New York. And I pull up in this really beat VW bus. As I gassed up the old bus, we talked. I was talking to these two old guys in overalls. I mentioned my wife was pregnant and birth was going to be soon. They looked at me. Then they looked at the VW. It was an uninsulated, quite old, rattling, bare metal cargo van, a cargo plane of a van. It had no insulation inside. It was just bare metal. It had two front seats that were kind of taped together, leather that was cracking. Heat was kind of non-existent. Anyway, they looked at the car and they looked at me and they said, or mused, let's say, they mused, "You have a child coming?" And in their voices I heard echoes of, I don't know if you remember the cartoon character, Foghorn Leghorn. "Son," I say, "Son, you have a child coming?" Like that. "Well now," they said, "why don't you take a look at this GMC truck? Step right over here." So I went and looked at the GMC truck. It was blue, solid, gleaming, not a speck of rust. Everything about it, from the massive emergency brake, which he almost needed two hands to pull back, to the rows of thickly padded, removable bench seats, shouted industrial strength. "Take a drive," they said. I got in and drove away. Such a smooth, solid ride. I had visions of driving with ease up the hill to our old farmhouse, even through deep winter snows, which was now, in the van, had been a risky, bouncing pedal-to-metal feat for the bus. I mean, you had to build up steam to make it up the hill, or you would not. I had visions of nomadic family security. "How much?" I asked when I got back, my heart in my mouth. Flush with truck power, with dreams and new hope. They named a ridiculously low sum, plus the wretched old bus. We shook hands all around. It was a bargain. I picked up Rose and spilled the good news. I drove back the next day, a check for the truck in my shirt pocket. 5 blocks from their gas station and car lot, there was a loud bang from the engine in the rear. The old VW staggered as if shot, then kept on rolling, though now in a halting, shuddering, groaning, wheezing sort of way. We limped up to the pump where I stopped and mercifully killed the engine. Except for the ticking of overheated metal, there was an awful silence. I sat on the peeling leather seat waiting for the smoke to clear. From the haze of my mind rose a helpless, anguished refrain, up the creek without a paddle. No truck, not even the old van now. Cash low, baby coming. The 2 elderly gents stepped forward. They didn't even confer with one another. They just stepped forward. "Well," they said, "you brought the bus. Do you have the check?" Yes, I do. You'll still take it?" I asked, incredulous. "A deal's a deal," they answered. "You don't want more money?" I asked in a daze. "Nope," said the Bodhisattvas. I pulled the crumpled check from my pocket, signed it, and handed it over, then drove off in that heavenly blue, the color of Bhaisya Guru Buddha, the Buddha of healing, GMC truck. Not long after I drove that reliable truck serenely down twisting mountain roads in a heavy fog in the middle of the night, so Jake could be born with one push in the local hospital. 8 weeks later, we loaded our possessions into that big blue truck and moved to Rochester for the Zen Center, where the truck was eventually named the Rafe Mobile by the Zen Center, which acquired it from us a year later. They got many years of sturdy yeoman service from it. It ran and ran as if it possessed a good stout heart under its huge blue hood, and not the mere assemblage of an engine. It ran as if blessed. I sometimes wonder what I would have found if I'd returned to that car lot and gas station. An empty field, wind rippling through long grasses, no cars, flags, banners, pumps, no old gents in overalls, all gone, gone, entirely gone. Were those two old guys in overalls bodhisattvas? They certainly seemed so at the time. I have no other explanation for such extraordinarily selfless compassion. They remind me now of Han Shan and Shide, those two old Zen loonies up on Cold Mountain, who Zen tradition accepts as having been emanations of Manjsuri, Bodhisattva of wisdom, and Samantbhadra, Bodhisattva of compassionate action. Still, even if it's true that advanced bodhisattvas surround us, and that even blind donkeys like ourselves might or can become great bodhisattvas, our job as Zen students is to embody our own bodhisattva vows, and in small ways that we're capable of right now, to make them real. This is the path of all growing up wisdom beings. It begins with this breath, this count, this koan. It's not ideal, it's not distant, it's not far away. And while such a path is endless, paradoxically at the same time, right here, in this fleeting moment, is everything we seek. A monk once asked Dalung, the body of form perishes, this body perishes. What is the eternal body? Dalung responded, the mountain flowers bloom like brocade. The river between the hills runs blue as indigo. The mountain flowers bloom like brocade. The river between the hills runs blue as indigo. And that's Blue Cliff Record, case 82 of the Hekigan Roku. We'll stop here and recite our great vows for all.